Welcome to Love in Focus, the continuing journey. I'm your host, as always, Rika Westron, and today I am joined by one of the authors that I recently did a review on her book, Why the Secrets. And would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, my name is Athalia Monae. I am from U.S., Chicago, Illinois, and I am the author, as the host just said, as Why the Secrets, which is my first self-published book.
Okay. Now that we've got this clear, why did you start to write this book?
Okay, so I wrote this book, Rickard. It started out as a short story for a short story contest in 2009. It was from a magazine contest. And the premise, we were given, according to the guidelines, the short story had to be about a Black woman with a struggle. And I did not want to do anything stereotypical. Anything that I do, any of my intellectual property, any work that I do personally is always guided by passion and purpose. So I wanted to stay within what I am. I also wanted to do something where people would walk away with some type of growth, with a different mindset, hopefully for the better. And so I wanted to use a topic that was relevant, which is effective communication. I've had struggles in the past in some relationships. Some of the times it was my fault and other times it was not. But the bottom line is there was a lack of open and honest communication, effective communication. And I wanted to show through this family's journey how in relationships with your spouse, with your relatives, with co-workers, any type of relationship can be affected when there's a lack of effective communication.
Yeah, I always talk about the vitality of open communication in all kinds of relationships, but especially romantic ones. Then, of course, but it really resonated with me, and I was hooked after reading the third sentence in your book. So yeah. And it really speaks to the universe. Yeah, it's very universal.
Thank you for that, and that's what I wanted. Creating these characters was very fun for me, but I wanted to create characters that we can see and go, okay, I see myself in that character. I see my coworker in that character. I see my friend in that in that character. I see my sibling. Like, I wanted these characters to be related to whoever reads this book, this short story. And I've had other people mimic what you just said, that the characters were relatable, which made me feel good. I had this woman who I don't know personally. She contacted me on Instagram. She sent me a private message. She had read my book, and I asked her if she could review it on Amazon, but she said that she would, but she also wanted to have a conversation with me about it. We played a little phone tag because it was around COVID, and some of her relatives were sick with COVID. But when we finally connected, and she asked me, "Is this story your life?" And I said, "This whole story is fictional." And she said, "It's so believable." And I said, "If you believe that this story is real, then I've done my job."
Yeah. Yeah. How did you come up with all these great character and the protagonist, Queenie?
Queenie, yes. So Queenie, like I said, I didn't want to do anything stereotypical when it comes to a Black woman, because we hear so many negative things about single parents and struggles. I wanted to show that there are some of us who are very family oriented. There are two-parent homes. There are successful mom and dad in their home. Both parents are working. Some of us do treat our children like kings and queens, as long as they deserve it. I wanted to show that, so that's why I got this character. I created this character, Queenie, from. But I also wanted to show that, yes, even though we have all these materialistic things, we go through things just like other people. We go through difficult situations, and some of us don't have the best communication within those relationships within our families. But this is how this family handled their situation after the typically the whole family was destroyed because of Queenie's mom keeping this secret. She did not keep the secret for malicious reasons, but she was trying to protect her family. But in her trying to protect her family, she caused resentment, hurt, confusion, division within one family. And so, I wanted to show this, and I wanted people to see how easily it could have been for Linda, Queen's mom, to have conversations, and even if she didn't have it with Queen, with her other relatives, her parents, her brother, because some of those relationships were just as damaged as the one. I wouldn't say her relationship with Queenie was damaged, but she caused Queenie a lot of stress and confusion and pain, and it all could have been avoided. And so I wanted to show through this story why it's important for us to have effective communication and open and honest communication in all of our relationships, because this could be avoided.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that one. And I've actually grown up with a single mom myself, so that was probably also why your book resonated with me.
Yes. Well, I was a single parent of
Oh,
children.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes, it's interesting because sometimes parents keep things from the children because they want to protect them, which is, of course, a natural instinct for a parent to do.
Right.
But sometimes it actually hurts them more in the long term.
You're absolutely correct on that, Ricky, because one of the things I want to say, I can relate to a couple of the characters. Queenie more than anybody, because just like Queenie was looking for her father, I too was looking for my birth father. The difference in she and I, she knew who her father was, and she grew up, well, she was raised with him for the first 9 years of her life. I never knew who my birth father was and didn't even know if he knew that I existed. So at the age of 13, I asked my mom for the first time, who is my father? And she gave me a name, and I said, does he have any siblings? She gave me the name of his brother. And she said, that's your uncle. And I went to the Yellow Pages, a phone book we have here in the U.S., and I opened it and I started looking for his name because his name is very common. And I found a couple of pages with that same name. And I remember walking to the kitchen sink. My mom was standing at the kitchen sink doing something. And I had the Yellow Pages open, and I said to her, I can't find him. There's a lot of men in this book. There's a lot of names in this book or something like that with the same name. And she looked down at me and she said, oh, well. And she kind of laughed, and I left, and I closed the Yellow Pages. And I went upstairs and I went to my room and I wrote him a letter. I have no idea why I wrote him a letter because I don't know where I was going to send it. But I wrote him a letter and I introduced myself to him. And I started telling him things I like. I like to write. I like to read. I like gum. I like pickles. Just telling him a little bit about me. And so when I turned 16 years old, I wanted to look for him again. And I could not remember the last name that she gave me for him. So I went back to her and I asked if she could give me his name. At that time, I asked about his parents' name. And this time I didn't get a response from her at all.
Oh.
Yeah, and my grandmother was at our house at that time, and my grandmother was sitting next to me on the couch. And when my mom ignored me, when she didn't answer my question, I turned to my grandmother and I said, do you know who my father is? And she said, I don't know who he is, dear. She said, if I knew who your father was, I would personally take you to him myself. And my mom came back around the corner. She came out of the kitchen and she said to my grandmother, mind your business. And I said to my grandmother, I'm sorry. And my grandmother said, no, you're not. She said, there's nothing sorry about you and you have nothing to apologize for. She said, you should know who your father is. She said, I just can't help you. I don't know. And I said, okay. So I started on a journey searching for him. I've always wondered, and I didn't have a lot to go by. I remembered his first name, and I have no idea why I never forgot his first name, but I forgot the last name. So I started on a journey searching for him here and there over the years, especially when I became a mom for the first time. And at that time, I asked my older sister. She didn't know. So I gave it a rest for a little while. And then in 2019, I joined Ancestry and started my journey
Oh, yeah.
of finding him. Yes, so.
Did you have any luck?
Yeah, I actually found him in September 2021.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. And he did not know that I existed. He didn't know.
Okay. So, let's see here. One moment. Yeah. So, how was that for you when you met your father? How, or have you met him in real
I
life?
have not. We connected. We text message. We had phone calls. He gave me. He gave me photos of my grandparents, of my great grandmother, of my aunts and uncles. Um, that what that did for me was it helped me so much because I wanted to know where I came from. I didn't know anything. I knew nothing, and because people around me didn't know any more than I knew, that made me even more curious to find out what's going on. Like, who is this man, and why is he not here? What happened between him and my mom? And so he said he doesn't know her, so that I don't have those questions to answer, but at least I know where I come from now. At
Yeah.
least I know that much because I didn't know that for a large part of my life. So him just being open to taking a DNA test because he took not one but two DNA tests.
Oh.
Yeah, the lab. The first time the lab couldn't read. They couldn't read the sample. The sample that he sent in.
Okay.
They couldn't read it, so they sent him another kit, and he took a second DNA test, and then that DNA test confirmed that he is my birth father. So, like I said, that has done a lot for me.
Yeah, and how was the process then when you wrote the book? Did it feel like it was some kind of helping you process this, or?
Actually, it didn't because, and this is so weird. When I wrote this short story, like I said, this started out as a short story in 2009. And when I wrote this short story, it had nothing to do with me whatsoever. My finding my birth father wasn't even on my mind. So after I wrote it, that woman who reached out to me, she got me to thinking when she kept saying, it just seems so real. I started thinking, like, did I subconsciously write about my own situation? Because there's so many similarities. Well, there's some similarities, but honestly, I didn't write this book with my personal journey in mind. It was all fictional. Yeah, the whole story was fictional.
Yeah. Okay. So, how did you feel when it finally was published?
I felt good.
How did you feel?
Okay, so I'm really I one of the things I do, I have own a startup business. I'm really great at business. Been in the business world for many years. I'm great at business, but I wasn't the best at marketing. And so I launched this book. I published this book a week before we were hit with COVID. And I did not market this book the way that it deserves to be marketed. I just wasn't good at marketing. I'm a lot better now than I was before back then, but I didn't market the book the way it deserved. But I wanted as many people to read this short story as possible, and I wanted to get these conversations going within our different relationships, within workplaces, within our households, within our friendships. I wanted to get this conversation going because, as I said earlier, this topic will always be relevant.
Yeah.
And something that should always be talked about and discussed.
Yeah. And then, of course, I have to ask you, because I really enjoyed this book, as I've told you, and also a little bit before when we started to record this podcast, I told you that. And what I'm thinking about is, will there be a sequel or will there be a new book written by you? Because I think that if you've read your book, Why the Secrets, you want either a sequel or another book from the same author. Because
Well,
you are really talented. And I really enjoyed reading it, and I can't wait for another book.
well, to answer your question, I am planning on doing a sequel. You are one of, I would say, like 8 or 9 people that has asked me the same question. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I turned this book into, I turned the short story into a book because there were people who read the short story and they were intrigued. Like, what happened next? You should, like, we want to know what happened with Queen, and did she find her father? What is her mother, like, why is her mother keeping this a secret? And started asking me questions. Um, and that encouraged me to turn the short story into a book. And I explained to them that this was for a short story again, and we were only allowed up to 2,500 words. So had I gone over that 2,500 words, I would have been disqualified. So it's like, you should write more because I want to know what happened next. So I turned the short story into a short book because I wanted people to walk away with some type of growth.
Yeah, and I think they really will when they read Why the Secrets. And I put links to Athalia's social media and also her website down below in the description that you can check out here.
Thank you.
Well, of course. And I've also included a link to my review, of course, which you have read already. And yeah, you're welcome. And well, with this, we are going to end this podcast now. And thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more reviews and information about dating, love, and relationships here on Love in Focus.